Everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing a breakdown of the new Season 11 items for mages. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. If you enjoy this, check out the other offerings as well. Rory, be very careful with that, please. You want to drink that over here? There you go. So I've already done a support breakdown, a tank breakdown, and an ADC breakdown. So be sure to check those out as well in depth. And I'm doing a little bit of a different approach here. I actually got on the PvE, and so we're going to look at these items kind of in person, because there are a few differences between this and what it says on the wiki, so we'll go over some of those in a little bit. But let me know what you think about this new format. I will make a Google Doc at the end, just a really quick breakdown of the percentages, and I have them here, and I'm going to talk about them. I already did all the math on it, but I just figured, you know, showing you the client itself rather than a Google Doc. Some people might like that. It might go a little faster. I don't know. We'll see. But let me know what you think in the comments. And check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. We stream every night starting around midnight Eastern Standard Time. Usually go till about 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on YouTube. It's a very friendly, chill community. We'd love to have you. No screaming and memeing. You can just come in, relax, have a good time. And then we do fresh patch notes and tier lists for every patch, and we constantly add more and more guides like best one trick, how to micro better, how to macro better, roaming guides, just almost anything you could think of. We have tons and tons of it on the channel. And some single player games as well. We do a lot of Total War Warhammer if you're interested in that. And lately we've been doing a Witcher 3 and a Darkwood playthrough from some generous donations from some of our viewers. But anyways, let's go ahead and get in here. So a couple of things that I've noticed off of this that I will say really quickly from some of the previous videos that I made are, I can see now what they changed to redemption as far as the support goes. I'm only going to talk about this for a couple of minutes, but it's 200 extra gold, and this does not get the bonus from plus healing and shielding anymore. On live, you get an extra double the healing amount or triple the healing amount on the redemption proc. So if you have 30% plus healing and shielding, then this gives 90% extra healing on redemption. So they took away that scaling, which is really rough, and I'm trying to think of what else. They took away the health regen on it as well, but they did give it 20% bonus healing and shielding. But nevertheless, I think this is going to be dumpstered. That's a big hit to the healing on this item. So now you only gain 20 per level of the ally, so it didn't go up at all. So if someone's like level 10, it's only going to be 210 base heal, which is like okay, but the fact that this is on a long cooldown and that it often misses, right? People run out of it or just don't pay attention. So it's got a really high fail case. It really needs to hit hard when it actually works, and I just think there are going to be better options. So that's one thing I noticed there. Ardent Sensor, they did take off the spell haste on it, so it no longer has CDR effectively, so that's kind of rough, but everything else is basically the same. A big change to Forbidden Idol that they made is Forbidden Idol no longer has CDR on it, so this is a lot weaker now. It's 50% base mana regen and 10% plus healing and shielding, so I think it's 5% plus healing and shielding on live, so you do get more of that, but you don't get the CDR, so that could matter for early builds. Staff of Flowing Water, they made 2,300 gold, so it's not 21, like I said in the previous video from the wiki. They increased the cost by 200, but it's still pretty good. It doesn't have the CDR on it either, the ability haste, but it still has all the other stuff that makes it really strong. So I think it's still going to be quite a good item. But those are just a couple of the major differences that I noticed, especially that Forbidden Idol doesn't have CDR on it anymore. Is kind of a huge deal. Now I will say also, interestingly enough, I will say that I do think if you're running a mage bottom, that it's possible that you might want to run Staff of Flowing Water if your support's not going to run it. Because the baseline effectiveness on this thing, it basically has 90 ability power if you trigger it, and it gives you 15% bonus movement speeds. I'm not sure if I wrote that down here, but it's basically a hell of a lot. 1% movement speeds, 38 each. Sorry, let me grab this real quick. So 38 times 15 equals 570 efficiency, and then you're getting 90 ability power on it. So yeah, it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 150% efficient, even if you're just proccing it on yourself in the laning phase. So you might say, well, what if you're playing a champion that doesn't have any healing or shielding? If you can find a way to fit Font of Flowing Water in there, if you have any kind of slow in your kit, then it could make it work. So I'm not saying necessarily you'd want to do this all the time, but I'm saying that, like, if you're running, like, a Cassiopeia bottom or something like that, maybe, because movement speed is so good on Cassiopeia, that this might be an option. The plus healing and shielding wouldn't totally be worthless on her, because you do get some healing off your Twin Fang, and if you go with Omnivamp, it would help with that as well. So if you go with the Osmox, which we'll talk about here in a little bit as one of the major items. So there are certain champs in the bot lane that could potentially run this, even if you don't have a healer. So that's how strong I think this item is. Just it's like, it's that effective. So it doesn't even matter that the base mana regen may not be super useful or any of that other stuff. If you can take Font of Life and then just something like Bone Plating or whatever as your secondaries, I think that this could be extremely powerful, especially because it's so cheap. Anyways, let's go on to the main course here. I just wanted to clarify a couple of those things. You can still run like Ardent. You see this sometimes too with like solo lane Lulu or solo lane Karma. They'll run Ardent Sensor. I think they might run Staff of Flowing Water now instead. But they have the exact same identical stats. It just depends on if you want to give your team the attack speed and the on-hit damage, or if you want to give your team the movement speed and the ability power. Or run them both, why not? But anyways, let's talk about the main items here. I didn't want to spend too long on that, but I just wanted to recap a couple of things that were different. Okay, so when we're looking at the mage items, they added a couple of new ones that are worth considering. Void Crystal, I think, is going to be a huge one now. That this is basically your spell pin, go-to spell pin item. You no longer have the flat pin off of Oblivion Orb, and flat pin is more impactful than the 15% pin that you're going to get off Void Crystal, but this is also a lot cheaper. So this is 25 ability power and then 15% pin. So it's quite good, but you can't go for the double pin anymore. You can't go for the 33 flat pin off of Sork Boots into Oblivion Orb anymore. And this does not build into Morellonomicon anymore, so it's worth noting that. It builds into Void Staff. Now, Void Staff is, since we're already transitioning over to that, so this is a very good rush item on a lot of champs. And then if you're going for, like, really quick, you know, spell penetration types of things. Now, if someone has, like, 40 magic resist early on, then 15% is going to be like 6 pins, so it's not nearly as good as the flat 15 pin. So I will say that, not as good as Oblivion Orb, but what it builds into might potentially be more efficient than Oblivion Orb. And that's going to be this Void Staff. So it's 65 ability power, 45% pin, so it's a little bit less on the ability power. But it's got 5% more pin than normal. And it's a lot cheaper. It's only 2,500 gold. I think on live it's like 2,650. It might be more than that. But this one jumped out at me. It's 132% efficient now off of this. So it's a very, very efficient item. So that might be something that people are interested in going, although that would slow down your mythic build if you're doing that. And the mythics are certainly good, as you would expect. But that is something that you might be seeing a lot more Void Staffs flying around, just because the components are so much better. Like, this is way better than having to get a Blasting Wand and an Amp Tome. Now you can actually build that Amp Tome into something, and you feel like it's just a much smoother power curve. So that one's really worth noting. Oblivion Orb is the other one. You might say, well, what is Oblivion Orb then? It's basically an 800 gold Executioner's Calling, but it's actually much more efficient. Oblivion Orb, I believe you're only paying 140 gold for Grievous Wounds, so that's actually very good. On Executioners, I think you're paying 300-ish for Grievous Wounds, like 285 for Grievous Wounds. So this is super, super efficient if you want to pick up those Grievous Wounds early. And the new Morello is only 2,500. Now it's 70 ability power, 250 health. So that's about the same as is on live. It might be like 10 less ability power, but it does not have the flat pen on it. So it's not as powerful as it used to be. So keep that in mind. So it's okay. I have it clocking in at Sonya's Banshees. Actually, I didn't do the Morello, but you're paying the same amount. You're paying like 140 for it. So there's really no reason to complete this until it's kind of like Executioner's Calling. It's like, yeah, the completed item's okay, but there's really no reason to do it if you don't have to. So you can just get the Oblivion Orb and just sit on it now early on and just go about your build. You're not priced into completing the full Morellonomicons. This will help you out against a lot of healing champs early on. So I think that's a good option. So yeah, I would not complete this unless you're just mega rich and you need to complete it. I would probably just stop at Oblivion Orb and go build something else. What else? Seeker's Armguard stood out as something that's super strong now. So this is going to give you a very good matchup into... there we go. It's going to give you a very good matchup into a lot of the AD champions middle, the Talons, the Zeds, and things like that. It's already, I don't remember how efficient it is on live, so it's already pretty efficient, I think. But now it's even better. It's only 900 gold, and it's 30 ability power and 15 armor. And with 0 charges on it, it's already 106% efficient, which is going to be very good. And then killing a unit grants you 1 armor, so you only have to kill 30 minions in order to fully charge this. That's like... what, 13 minions come down per wave. So if you have perfect CS, or per minute rather, so if you have perfect CS, you could get this in about 2.5 minutes. Most people probably get it in like maybe 5 minutes. But that's really fast stacking, and if you get that, if you get 30 extra armor, I didn't do the math on it, but it's gonna be tremendous. I guess I could do it right now. 45 times 20 equals 900. That's 1560 total value, and it's 173% efficient once you get this up. So getting that Seekers early, very big deal. And they also lowered the cost on Zhonya's to 2,500, and it barely took off any stats. I think they maybe took off like 10 ability power, which is about 220 gold, but they dropped the price. I believe it was 2,900 gold. So that's a very, very good bargain. So this is extremely strong. You're going to dumpster 80 lanes with this item most of the time. You also get fan favorites like Stopwatch to make plays. So this is very, very good. So I see a lot of mid lane battles going for get an early Seekers if you're against AD, and then go complete your Mythic, and then come back and you can complete Zhonya's. So you don't even have, like, Zhonya's by itself is about 100% efficient by my calculations. So getting Seekers and sitting on it's actually more cost efficient than fully completing the Zhonya's. But with the Zhonya's, you do get the active, which it's difficult to calculate how powerful that is. But in certain matchups, as y'all know, it is very good against Zed or, you know, anything else that you're able to make an outplay with the Zhonya's. It's good, but you can just sit on Seekers. So you can just get this Seekers early, and then, you know, go complete your Amoks or your Liandrys or whatever you're going to get, and then come back and get it later. So that's one thing that I really like about the mage builds now, is that they are so modular. This is probably the best selection of cheap items that I've seen from any of the roles so far, outside of maybe support. Support has really cheap items, but you got to keep in mind that supports don't get as much money, right? As a mid laner who's just rolling in cash most of the time, or a mage, being able to get all of these extremely powerful gold efficient items like the Seekers, potentially like the Oblivion Orb, and even to some extent the Void Crystal if you just want that magic pen early but you don't want to complete the whole Void Staff. You have a lot of options there to build into that. So I think their early game is A+, you know, probably the best that I've seen so far. That's something that was really a problem with, I think, with a lot of the marksman items, is that a lot of their early game stuff wasn't as good. At least it didn't strike me as being as good as it has been in the past, because they removed Static Shiv, the 2,600 gold item, and they made Hurricane 3,400, so they kind of priced you out of Hurricane, and so you're kind of stuck with Rapid Fire and Storm Razor, which are okay, but they're really a lot more limited. So I think that mages so far might be in some of the best spot, one of the best spots as far as like early game flexibility, because they've lowered the cost on a lot of these items. And speaking of which, let's talk about Banshee's Veil real quick. So that is also now 2,500 gold, and they made it the exact same stat line as Zhonya's, so it's really easy to compare the two. It's like, okay, what do you want? Do you want the Spell Shield, or do you want the Zhonya's effect? So I think that people are going to be rushing this quite a lot against different mages in the bot lane. It's only a 30-second cooldown on that shield too, so it's going to be up all the time. So that really protects you against a lot of the hard engage hook champions out there. So if you're playing an immobile mage type of thing, an Orianna or something like that, this is going to be extremely good. Or if you're playing one of those, if you want to go a bot lane mage, right? You want to go Cassiopeia or something like that bot lane. I think Cassio is going to be pretty strong. Then this can help protect you against the Blitzcrank, the Nautiluses, Leona engages, all of that kind of stuff. So very, very strong. Now I will say the new item they added for this is Spell Shroud, which is not as good. It's not as good as Seekers. So it's 1,200, it's 25-25, And then every 60 seconds you gain 3 magic resist. So it takes 5 minutes to come online, which isn't that bad. So it can stack 5 times. That's, if you get it stacked up, it's actually pretty good. I mean, that'll give you 40 times 18. It's going to be 720 worth of magic resist. So a total of 1270, so close to 100%. So it's not bad. It's pretty good. But for how strong this is in mage on mage battles, like just how powerful Banshees is, I think it makes sense this is a little bit weaker early on than Seekers. And then of course you have the same old, I think that's the same Fiendish. They may have increased, I can't remember the exact stat line right now, but that, it might be slightly weaker than Live. But nevertheless, extremely powerful item. So you have a fantastic suite of items that are all about 2,500 golds. This gives you an excellent follow-up item, lots of good different build choices after you complete your mythic. So definitely, you know, S+ on your itemization options off of 2 items. And even off of the 1 item, the mythics are pretty good. Now, once you start getting into the 3,000 gold items, this is where it gets a little shaky. So I think all of these are very good and very situational. I think that Void Staff is probably going to be like the must-get item in a lot of situations. But nevertheless, it's very good. Now, this is where it starts to get a little shakier. Now, Archangel's Staff, I believe this is a pretty substantial nerf to this item over time. So it's 60 ability power, 400 mana, gain ability power equal to 3% of your bonus mana. That's the key word there. So yes, it's 3% instead of I think it used to be 2%. Maybe it's always been 3% for Archangels. I don't have it looked up right now. I know that Manamune, they changed it to 3%. But it's bonus mana now. It's not total mana. So this does not include your baseline mana, and that's a big deal because a lot of champs are going to have, a lot of mages in the mid game, when you might be getting this item, are going to have, you know, somewhere along the lines of 500 you know, just natural mana that they have in their kit. That does not count as bonus mana. That's total mana, right? So that means you're gonna lose like 15 ability power that you would have gotten off of the old Archangel Staff. So that's kind of rough. And then the total mana you can get on this is only up to 850 instead of 1,000 as well. Now it is cheaper. It's 3,000 instead of 3,200. But once you get this completed, let's say you get it up to the Seraphs, right? It does turn into 5% of your bonus mana, but this is going to be 850, and then with your
the magic calls to me.
If you get one of the mana items like a Liandry's, one of the mana mythics, they all have 600 mana on them, so that'd be 1450. So if you do 1450 times 0.05. That's your bonus mana. You're going to get 73 ability power plus 60. It's going to be 133 ability power, so that is pretty good, times 22. So that is efficient. Once you get it, it is efficient. It's 2915 value, and that doesn't include the mana. Like, once you include the mana, then yeah, it's going to be very efficient. But it should be noted as well that your Imperium, you gain a certain amount of mana equal to... Now, I don't know if these stack with each other either. If they stack with each other, it might be better. But you get 5% bonus mana off of everything, of your maximum mana, plus your ability power. Now, this is probably ability power on other items. So if you have 200 ability power from your other items, it's probably 10%. But I don't know if the mana off of that also stacks with Awe. If it does, that's going to be a little bit better. Obviously, that's going to give you an extra 150 mana, so maybe an extra, I don't know, 10 or 15 AP. What's up, dear? Yeah, it's the little Hoover thing, or the big one? Okay, the little... It might be in there. There's a vacuum in there, I think. Yeah, in the closet.
I just looked.
Okay, if it's not in there, I don't know. There was a vacuum on the other side. I did have it in that closet, or the little red crappy one is downstairs. If it's not in there, like behind the toilet paper rolls over there, then okay, then I don't know where it is, but it's loose in the house then. I don't know where it would be. You could check the guest room closet maybe. Okay, anyway, so it is efficient. So it is that. It does not have the shield on it, so it doesn't have the defensive capabilities. And, you know, with how powerful some of the, and we'll talk about the mythics here in a second, I'm kind of saving those for last, which I guess is out of order, but whatever. I'm just sort of going on a cost basis here. So hopefully you'll forgive me if you don't like that order. But it is cost efficient once you get it stacked. It is worth, but it doesn't have the shield, so you don't get the protection on it. You do get some extra mana. If that mana stacks with the 5%, once again, if your bonus mana, not total mana, then it does end up being pretty powerful. Now, that does assume you get the mana item down here. If you do not get one of these mana items, if you get, and I do think that the non-mana ones are stronger, then that is going to hurt you overall, right? So if you get a non-mana one, if you're just looking at 850 bonus mana, that's only going to be 43 extra, which would only be 100 ability power, which is still cost efficient, but not as cost efficient as other options. So, obviously, going to work way better if you do get the mana versions of the items. But if you don't, it'll be a little bit less efficient. So, it is good. Now, one of the more controversial things they're doing here is Tear of the Goddess. It's now a starter item, so you can get this instead of Doran's if you want to. Now, I don't know if they're... So, Doran's Ring, 15... Okay, so they're taking off 10 health on it. And killing a minion restores 6 mana. Okay, so they are bringing that back instead of the mana per 5. So, that's quite a lot. I mean, basically, every wave, you're going to gain 30 mana. So, that's a hell of a lot of mana. So, that means 60 mana per minute. It's like 1 mana per second. So, that's pretty huge. And I assume that's going to be... whatchamacallit, limited to 1 Doran, so I assume you can't get 2 Dorans and get 12 back per kill. It doesn't say it's unique. It does say Rancher, though, and it does say Mana Siphon. So, maybe, because it's named, maybe it is unique, then. That'll be interesting to see. I'm just gonna assume it's unique. Yeah, that's a lot of mana regen, but you do get 15 ability power, and you do get the 70 health. But with this, you get 5 magic damage on hit, which is the same. And then if you hit a minion, you get 3 bonus mana. If you hit an enemy champion with your charges, then you get, what is it, dear? No, I don't think so. I didn't do anything in the basement, no. I mean, maybe someone else did. I didn't. So, I think it's going to take longer to charge up. You only gain a new charge every 8 seconds. Now, I did the math on another video for the Manamune, and with perfect usage, I think you can get it in 10 minutes, but the vast majority of people are probably going to get it in, and that was after you complete the Manamune. I think the vast majority of people are going to get it at, like 15 to 20 minutes, but if you can start with it, like in the fountain, and you have to hit an enemy. You can't just spam spells, you have to hit an enemy. But if you're playing a champ that has like spammable stuff where it's pretty easy to hit them, so like a Cassiopeia or something, in the lane, if you can consistently hit the enemy with the charges and get 6 charges every 8 seconds, then you can probably get up to the 450 faster. So basically you can get this as a starting item and just sit on it and then pick up your Archangels as like a second or a third item when it's completed. You will have 70 less AD or 70 less HP in the lane. You will have 15 less ability power, but that can actually be quite strong, especially if you don't want to go for any other items that have mana on it. And they have taken mana off of a lot of items. So overall, I think it could be good. If you want to go for it. So I guess you can start with tier, and then you're basically getting... you're going to have a lot less mana because you don't have the mana refund from Doran's Ring early on, which is substantial, and you are going to be a lot less... You are going to be a lot weaker to all-in pressure, but... The more I think about it, I think this one actually could work a little bit more just because you do need the mana, and it's probably going to be a lot easier to hit people with spells than auto attacks when I think about, like, Manamune. And this was already priced at, 3,000 gold. Versus Manamune, one of the main reasons people would go for Manamune is because it's so cheap. It's 2,400, and they made it 2,900 or 2,800 now. So, anyways, I think it's pretty good. If you want to start with tier, that might actually become the standard because a lot of your other items are not going to have mana. Like, you're not going to build Catalyst on a lot of people. There might still be some places where you get Catalyst or Lost Chapter, but some of the other mythics are going to be a lot better that don't have the mana on it, so maybe that can solve some of your mana problems early on. You can also take the new Presence of Mind, and that's another thing that's a little bit weaker about Archangels is Presence of Mind currently gives everyone 500 bonus mana. That's going away, but you are getting quite a bit of mana regen. I think if you hit an enemy with an ability with Presence, you're going to get... at level 5, you're going to get 12 mana off of that over 4 seconds. So you're going to end up getting like 3 or 4 mana per 5 off of that. And especially if you want to go for something like that Staff of Flowing Water, if you're going for like a bot lane mage and they're trying to push that a bit more, then that has 100% mana regen, which will help you out a little bit in that area as well. So anyways, I think you can take Presence and maybe take Tier, and then you don't have to get Chapter during the laning phase anymore. So ultimately, I think it's pretty good. I don't think I would probably rush it, but you can go ahead and just sit on that Tier for a while. Let it charge up, because you don't get any bonus from completing the Archangels versus Tier. It stacks at the exact same amount. It's 3 stack. So, yeah. So it'll probably be a pretty popular starting item. So I guess for mages, I would say it's actually quite good if you can get away with not all-inning in the early game, and if you don't have huge mana problems in the early game. Because it's ironic that it gives you mana, but you're actually going to have a lot less mana in the early game because you don't have the regen on it like you get with the Dorans if you have an extended laning phase. Okay, Lichbane. Now this, I think, is a bit weaker. It doesn't have the flat mana on it anymore. It's got 80 ability power and 10% movement speed, so it's 71% efficient. I'm not sure exactly what it is on live. It's got more movement speed than live, but doesn't have the ability power. And I don't know what the scaling is. It says after using an ability, your next attack does like X amount of damage. It is cheaper at 3,000, so I suspect that champs that want this will probably continue to get this. But if you're getting one of these other items that are, somewhere in the neighborhood of... Now, why is this cheaper? I bought a crystal. Oops, there we go. Don't want to throw off the cost here. But champions who want this are still going to get it. It's just, if they do have mana problems, if they're trying to cheat the mana curve, then that could be a little problematic. So it'll be niche. I mean, like, Twisted Fate will still like it. Echo will still like it. Some of those types of champs will still like it. But I still think it'll be fairly rare, because I think there are better options. Mostly some of these 2,500 gold options, especially for ranged mages, are going to be a lot better. So this just might get priced out. It's not that it's bad, it's just it's competing with better stuff, I think, at a lower price point. Horizon Focus. Now this one I think is pretty bad. This is one of the newer items. I will note also, you'll notice what's missing from 2,500 is Protobelt. They made it a mythic now, and it's good, but it's not going to be something where you can cheat the curve anymore on Echo or Fizz or a lot of these other champs. They're not going to be able to rush that item anymore and get under everybody else. I think they're going to be on the same budget, or if they do get a cheap item, they might potentially get a Zanya's early, but they're going to be on the same power curve as everybody else, and I think that's probably healthier for mid lane overall, especially in solo queue. But Horizon Focus is 73% efficient, and and it has nothing on it. It's like ability power, which is cool and everything, but doesn't have mana on it, doesn't have CDR, penetration, doesn't have anything that you want. Damaging a champion with a non-targeted ability from longer than 750 increases your damage dealt to them by 10% for 6 seconds. So, I mean, 10% is powerful. So, like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, maybe Vel'Koz or something, because his is true damage as well. So there might be some instances where you would want this, but that's a lot to pay, right? Like, you're paying, like, 800 gold for that passive. What does that even build out? Okay, so just, like, Needlessly Large Rod and Mage's Epic. Okay, so it's going to be renamed. But, yeah, I just think there are better options. I mean, maybe on some very niche champions. Now, on Assassins, if you go in, if you immobilize them, you also get the 10% extra. So if you, like, get them with the Diana or something and pull them in, like, that would count. Or, like, if you get an Echo Stun or something. But, or, like, a... The problem is your opener ability that triggers the CC is not going to get the bonus damage. So if you have, like, some big piece of CC, like a Fizz Fish, the fish is not going to get the bonus. Like, because they're going to have to be knocked up first. So it's extremely situational right now. I just think it just doesn't do enough. I'd rather get something else, but I'm sure there will be some situations. Like I said with Volkaz, because you're amplifying true damage, I believe it amplifies true damage. It might be that true damage can never be amplified by any modifiers. I'd have to double check kind of the rules on true damage, but it's very, very situational, so probably wouldn't get it most of the time. Okay, Cosmic Drive. This one is clocking in at 89% efficient, so it's pretty decent. This is like your ability haste one, so if you're a champion that really wants to spam stuff quickly, this can be pretty good. And you gain movement speed equal to 20% of your ability haste for 4 seconds. So that's a lot. So if you get to like 50 ability haste, because some of the mythics will have ability haste like a Liandry's or something. So if you go like with Liandry's plus this, then you're going to have 55. So that'll put you at 21 extra movement speed for 4 seconds. So that's pretty good. It's got a light amount of ability power, no spell pen. You know, the damage on it's going to be lower than some of the other options, and it is expensive at 3,000. So it's okay, but I could see like a Cassiopeia or something maybe really wanting this, or a Rise, just something that wants to like really wants to move fast and spam abilities. So I don't know. It's just, it feels like it does have low ability power compared to some of these other ones. Like, you know, these 2,500 gold items have 65 ability power, and they have cool actives as well, right? Like the Banshees, and this, you know, has a ton of spell pen. So I feel like you're giving up a lot of damage in order to get the movement speed and the haste. But like I said, there might be some situations where it could be good, but I feel like it'll be very, very situational. You have to really want that speed. So maybe Rise, maybe Cassiopeia. There might be some other ones that I'm thinking of that I could think of. Maybe if you really have to kite things, but I think it'll be very rare. I think it'll be very rare. So maybe Cassiopeia, maybe Rise. Nashor's Tooth. Wow, this one is getting like huge buffs. This thing is out of control now. Any champion that can get this item, if they don't nerf it, is going to be extremely strong. So you're going to like this, Jason. If you're watching this video out there, if you all know Jason from the stream, this is the item on Azir, and Azir is going to like this very much. I mean, you might even get this on Kaisa. Just like anyone who can get this, Kale, anyone who can get this item is going to be out of control. So let's look at these stats here. 100 ability power, so giving it 20 more ability power than it currently has. And it's already a really strong item, but I feel like it's going to be a lot better. 50% attack speed, so it already has that. It does not have the CDR on it anymore.
You remain focused.
Are we lagging or what? I'm recording offline, so hopefully this comes back on. If it doesn't, I mean, I guess I can still hover the stuff, so maybe it doesn't matter. But it now scales with 25% of your ability power for the on-hit, which is huge. I think it's only 10% on live. It's a very low number on live. So this ends up being, just by itself with no other ability power, 148% efficient. So I think that's currently what Nashor's is, but it's going to scale a lot better. So basically they took off the CDR, but they gave it much better scaling with the on-hit. So champions that get a lot more attack speed are going to like this a lot more. So anyways, that thing is going to be beast mode. So especially if you have a lot of other ability power, because by itself it's 40 on-hit damage. So it's 40 on-hit damage with 100 ability power with 50% attack speed. So this thing is extremely over budget and underpriced. It's very, very good. So anyone that currently likes this, like a Kale, is going to really love it on the new version. Especially, now that's the thing, Azir doesn't like, his soldiers don't trigger on hit, so he may not like it as much because he can't use the Acathian Bite. The 20%, like losing that 20% CDR might be a bigger deal, but they're just trying to clarify that this is for basically auto attackers that really want ability power. So like Diana would probably really like this more. They call it Acathian, which makes me believe they think it should be for Kog'Maw. If they increase Kog'Maw's AP ratios, maybe Kaisa would really love it. But yeah, it's a very interesting item. I don't think a lot of champs are going to get it, but it could be good in the right situation. Rylai's, I feel like this was a nerf, but but when I calculated it up, it still is a good bargain, because it is 2,600 gold on live, which it's really efficient on live. I think it's like 130% or something on live, and nobody still gets it just because it doesn't do that much else, right? It's got the 90 ability power, which is very good, but it just doesn't have the spell pin on it, doesn't have the CDR, it doesn't have mana, so it just gets outshined by the double pin builds or like Protobelt into Lichbane type of builds on live. And I think this is probably going to be about the same on with this version, although it's even more expensive. So 3,000 gold. Yes, it is efficient. They did increase the slow by a lot. So now it's a 30% slow instead of a 15% slow for 1 second, though, which isn't very long. But still, that's very good. So, like, maybe on like Cassiopeia or something where that slow is very nice and can help you kite. But, I mean, you might just want to go Cosmic Drive instead. Like, that's the thing. Like, Cosmic Drive does have, like, 30 less ability power, which is a big deal. But it has the haste, and it speeds you up for a lot. And it lasts for 4 seconds. Like, if they ever dodge a spell, if they flash or they dash, and you just miss one of your spells on Cassiopeia, you just miss a Q or something, then you're going to lose the slow. So I feel like this probably just does a lot more. Albeit for less ability power. So 30 ability power, 30 ability haste, I think is budgeted as more. So it's more valuable than ability power, but it depends on the champion as to whether or not that's going to translate to actual more DPS or not. Like, Cassiopeia's Twin Fangs, for example, are already really fast. Like, Ryze's Qs are already on a very low cooldown, so I'm not really sure. I just feel like this is probably not going to see a lot of play, but maybe. Deathcap, they made this, like, mega expensive now, so I really don't think a lot of people are going to get it. But it is cost efficient. They did increase the ability power ratio on it by a pretty good amount. So I think it went from 25% to 30%. So it's 90% efficient just by itself if you just buy it straight up. And then obviously if you start buying more items, then it's going to be more efficient. And considering that the vast majority of these items are now somewhere around 100% efficient, it's not that bad, right? Like, the only things that are really far above on efficiency are Void Staff and Nashers. Void Staff's just, like, insane. Now, without it's like, on live, I think it's, like, 73% efficient. Something like that, and now it's, like, 130. But, yeah, I kind of like Rylai's. It's a huge heavy hitter, big ticket item, but I just think it's too expensive in a lot of scenarios. If you're already having to get, like, 3,400 or 3,200 for your mythic, it's like, when are you going to have time to get this? I mean, if you're, like, mega rich, it could be good. Now, on champions that have some sort of shielding or healing or something like that with it, where not all of it is raw damage, where you don't get as much benefit from spell pin, that might be places where you would get it, right? So if you're like playing an Orianna or a mid lane Karma or Lulu or just something like that, where you get like much more benefit out of ability power than anything else, Vhagar obviously, then maybe this would work. But I just feel like it's too steep. Because if you get this plus a mythic, plus your boots, you know, you're already looking at like 8,500 gold, and that's going to be like 20 to 25 minutes in the game. So if you're mega rich and you can afford to get these needlessly large rods,
Precisely.
then I think that, you know, maybe, but I feel like it'll be pretty niche. It'll be pretty niche. Like, most people are just going to opt for the cheaper stuff, either Void Staffs, Zanyas, Banshees, to go along with the Night Harvester, because you could almost, like, not quite 2, but you can get like 1.5, you know, Zanyas. Like, you could be halfway on the way to your next item by the time that you get this. So mega rich, sure, but everyone else maybe not as much. Okay, so let's talk about the mythics here on the back half of the video. So sorry, I guess a lot of people start with the mythics, but I wanted to work my way up the chain. So you have the most choices as mage. You have 6. Most other roles only have like 3. Now, they tried to justify this by saying, well, some mythics are for 8 mana users and some are not. But it's like, you can get the mana-less mythics on champions that still need mana, and you can just use stuff like Archangels, Presence of Mind, Blue Buff, you know, stuff like that to sort it out. So I think that a lot of these will be open for all kinds of mages, even if they don't necessarily like fit into one of those neat categories. And I will say also, just really quickly, I do not see Demonic Embrace anywhere on here. This was something that they marketed on their own materials, but hasn't showed up on the PvE. So what that is it's the 3,000 gold and gives 80 ability power, 400 health, and has a passive called Azakana's Embrace, which whenever you damage somebody, it does 2% of their maximum health per second, and then you get 20 magic resist and 20 armor. And then every champion that you damage in addition to that is you get an extra 5 armor and 5 magic resist right now. So it's a very good tanky AP item that they were really, like, it was on the front page of like their Riot Please and stuff like that. But it's not here, so I don't know if they've removed it or they're balancing it. It was extremely strong. I don't remember the stats offhand, just kind of eyeballing it. It's probably, let's see, 1740 plus 1,000. So it's probably like close to 2,800 base for 3,000. So it's almost 100% efficient, and then it has the 2% burn plus the 20/20 MR and armor. 20 armor is 400, and 20 mana is close to that. It's like 360, so that's like 760. So the baseline value on it's probably something like 3,600, not including the burn. So it's probably already, 120 or 130% efficient. So if they do release that item, it'll be very, very good, and almost everybody's going to get it at some point. So they might be re-budgeting it. They should just get rid of the armor and magic resist on it. It's like, that's just too much. And they already have the burn damage on Liandry's. Maybe they could get rid of the burn damage. I don't know. But anyways, that's a notable omission here. So if you're wondering where's the Azakana mask item, it's not here. At least I couldn't find it. I looked around everywhere. It's not on the PvE right now. So they might be working on it. But keep an eye on that. Stay tuned for later if they bring that back. Okay, let's talk about the major items here. Okay. Okay, so Rocket Belt, and a lot of these are about the same price. I'll just run through the prices. It's not really worth looking at in terms of efficiency. The Harvesters, and then we'll just talk about the just the stats on it, and the actives and the passives are really what are going to make these pop. So the Harvester's 88, Protobelt's 88, Amok is 98, so this one's a little bit more efficient than the other ones. Liandry's 96, Luden's is 93, and Everfrost is 100. Everfrost is really bad compared to the other ones. So I guess we're going to start with this one. So it's got 80 ability power, 20 health, 60 mana, 10 ability haste. So they're all pretty close to like efficient. They're all like worth considering in terms of that. So 45-second cooldown, so not that long. And from what I understand, it's a Hextech GLP, basically. Slows enemies by 65% for 1.5 seconds, so it's not very long. It does not have the ice field on. I guess if you take the whatchamacallit, the rune that does it, you can add the ice field to it. But it's only 100 magic damage. Now, once again, that probably scales. I don't know if it scales based on level or based on AP. But nevertheless, it's okay. So you can get GLP, but now it's not as cheap. One of the main attractions of GLP is it was very cheap. It was only 2,800 gold, so it was 400 gold cheaper than Luden's and had very similar stats. I think it may have had like 10 less ability power. So that's why a lot of people would get it, especially with that rune. But now, like, you're paying a lot for that, and Luden's is just going to be a lot more powerful. It's on a much lower cooldown and it has other stuff going on. So yeah, I think this is pretty anemic compared to the other ones. It does have ability power on it, or it does have haste on it, or health, sorry. It does have health on it. They all have a very similar ability power. Like, they all have 80. So they tried to make that version of it, like, very similar. And then some of them have, like, some degree of health on them, and then all of the mana ones have 600 mana. So they tried to standardize, and the non-mana ones have no mana, obviously. So they tried to standardize some of it to make it kind of easier and to understand and easier to see why you're picking that item is for its unique passive. But yeah, I think there's just better options than the slow. I think if you really want the slow, like, if you really want to stick to people a little bit better, I would probably either just get Rylai's, or maybe better yet, just Cosmic Drive if you want the movement speed to help you kite or to run people down. I would probably pick one of those over this. Now, this is AoE, so it can hit multiple people, but I just feel like if you want the slow, I'd probably just go with something else. Okay, Luden's Tempest. Now, this is going to be one of the better ones. I think this one has a flat 10 pin on it, so you cannot get that pin earlier. It does build out of Lost Chapter, which does basically the same thing as it does right now, I believe. I haven't done the exact math and compared the Lost Chapter, but I think it's very, very close to what it is on live. But you cannot get the flat pin anywhere else. You only get it on this big item now. So, you know, once again, there is no Oblivion Orb that has the flat pin. It's changed. So you can't go for double pin build, rush, you know, dominate off of 1.5 items like you used to be able to do anymore. With like boots plus 1,500 gold, double pin, not possible. However, you can get it later. That does mean that it's going to be a little bit weaker later on because flat pin is much better earlier on in the game when people haven't bought as much resistances and where they haven't leveled up as much to get natural resistances. Now, I will say, I suspect a lot of mage-on-mage matchups, if you remember Banshees being 2,500 from back in the day, like Season 5 or Season 6, everybody got this item. I think that's going to happen again on mage-on-mage battles. It's probably going to be your main item into Banshees. So that is going to make the flat pin weaker because they're going to have flat resists, and resists are cheaper than the pin. I think flat pin... 1% pin is budgeted at 47. I believe flat pin is 31 gold each. So, you know, basically they can negate your 31 gold with this item because the magic resist is only 18 gold each. So 18 gold cancels your 31 gold budget for Ludens. Almost 2 to 1. Not quite, but... Anyways, so it depends on how the meta shakes up, but that flat pin is going to be very good against squishy champions that don't have a lot of magic resist. However, your direct matchups probably are going to have magic resist in the meta, I suspect. Damaging an enemy champion gives you 100 magic damage to the target and 3 nearby enemies, and grants you 30% movement speed for 3 seconds. This is massive. Once again, this is another reason why you would not go for the Everfrost, is because you get this huge bonus movement speed, and it's an 8-second cooldown. Like, right now, I don't know what the cooldown is on Ludens, but it's certainly longer than 8 seconds. So you can trigger this very often. This is a 45-second cooldown. This is 8. In combat, too. So you can trigger this, like, very comfortably twice, maybe even 3 times. And it hits 3 nearby enemies as well. It's 4 enemies. So it's good wave clear. It's good AoE damage in combat. It gives you nice movement speed for kiting and repositioning. Especially if you take something like Phase Rush with this. They're probably going to nerf Phase Rush for the preseason, I suspect. They haven't said anything, but it's getting out of control. There's a lot of people that get it. So yeah, this is awesome. It's got pin, it's got a little bit of haste, it's got mana on it, ability power, and especially for something like Rise or Cassiopeia, it's going to be nuts. You're just going to get a ton of movement speed out of it, which is very good. So that's another reason also why, like, Cosmic Drive and, like, Rylai's, if you opt for Ludens, you know, you just may not need these. However, why not combine them? If you want a lot of movement speed, why not go Cosmic Drive plus Ludens? Then you can really move fast. So I don't know how it stacks, if it does the flat movement speed first and then the percentage, or the percentage and then the flat. I'm not sure, but especially Cassiopeia with all this movement speed stuff, because she can't get boots, don't forget. So she's supposed to be balanced by the fact that she's really slow, right, early on in the game. But with with these kind of options, that they may have a hard time balancing her. So anyway, same thing with Rise. So I suspect maybe you get both of these on something like Cassiopeia. It could be very strong. But yeah, Luden's definitely a huge heavy hitter. I suspect this to be a crowd favorite, especially for kind of long distance mages that want to stay closer. And then you have Liandry's Anguish. So this one has some of the most ability haste. It's 20 ability haste. That's 20% CDR. So that's good. Another reason is, like, Rise and Cassiopeia don't need the CDR as much. It's nice. But you can always, like, neutralize the fact that there's low CDR on this. There's low ability haste with the fact that this has a huge amount. So anyways, this has a lot. So 80 ability power, no flat pen, but it's got the 25 ability haste. So pretty good efficiency there. More like the Harvester's 88%, or the Luden's is 93. This one's 96. It slightly edges out Luden's. But your spells cause enemies to burn for a 60, so a flat amount, plus 4% of the target's health over 4 seconds. Now that's the thing, is that's only 1%, and it's not doubled anymore if they're slowed. Now, it does shred 5% of their magic resist for 4 seconds, up to 25%. So that's actually pretty big, and I don't know if this stacks multiplicatively or additively with Void Staff. So, for example, if you have this fully stacked at 25% and Void Staff is 40%, does that mean that it's a grand total of 65% total pen? Or is it 40% and then 25% of that? So, for example, if there's 100 pen, it gets reduced by 40% for Void Staff, and then it's 25% of that, so it's like 15, so that would take it down to 45 total. Or is it both of them, the 65%, which would take it down to 35? So is it 35 or 45? And it's not really clear about this on the wiki, because sometimes it stacks additively and sometimes it stacks multiplicatively, I believe. It just depends on the items and the abilities. So jury's out on that, I'm not sure. But 25%, that's like a little mini Void Staff. Either way, it's very, very good. So, yeah, you don't get the movement speed, you don't get the AoE, but if you have already a bunch of abilities that are AoE that you can spam, maybe that's enough. It's pretty good against tanks. So, and it's worth noting, it shreds that resist for your entire team. So this might be a go-to item if you have multiple magic users on your team. So if you're playing, you know, Evelyn jungle or something like that, maybe you go for the Liandrys, and that helps out your whatever, your Cassiopeia mid or your Orianna mid or whatever. So that is pretty nice. And this is obviously for something that can machine gun out spells so that you shred it as fast as possible. Because you want, oh no, it shreds it per second, not per spell. Okay. So you want kind of longer fights then. So ideally you want a fight that lasts like 5 seconds at least. You get that 25% shred. So it's okay. It has good utility. This would be great on like a support or something that has this. You can add extra shred for your team. So I could definitely see it getting built. I do think that Luden's is probably better just because it can hit AoE. Like it's got really good poke, and that movement speed is so massive on a lot of mages. It's not decaying. 30% non-decaying movement speed is just, it's so good. So I don't know, I feel like maybe Liandry's, maybe sometimes like you would get this. The ability haste is very nice. I think that's probably more valuable than 10 pen. I'm not sure, but the torment, the 4% of the maximum health, I mean, I guess, what is that, like if they have 2,000 health, it's 80, but it's over 4 seconds and it just refreshes. So it's like, what, 80 plus 60, that's 140 over 4 seconds is like, what, 35 damage per second. You know, when this thing's hitting you for like 100 instantly on 4 targets, so it's like 400. It just feels like this is so much better in a team fight, especially because it's an 8-second cooldown. You can trigger it twice instantly, and then, you know, 8 seconds later again, so like 9 seconds you can double trigger this. And presumably this also scales. It used to scale with your ability power, like not by a lot, but like 10%, which is significant. So, or at least notable would be a word there. But anyways, okay, so we're almost at an hour, so we need to hurry up here. But I don't know. It's a tough call, and that's what's cool about all these items, is I think it is a tough call. There are actual decisions you have to make. It's not cut and dry what you should get every time. So anyways, this will be kind of a toss-up among mana users, but I think Luden's is probably going to get the edge just because that movement speed is so crazy. Okay, Harvester. Now this is one really big one for multi-fights, or multiple champion damage. So 80 ability power, 250 health, 15 ability haste, no mana on it. So usually the no mana items have much more powerful passives because they don't have mana. So damaging an enemy champion deals 150 to 250 magic damage and grants you 25% movement speed for 1.5 seconds. Okay, so it's like a mini Luden's, does more damage, but single target, does not spread to multiple targets, has no mana on it, but it's 60 seconds per champion. So in a team fight, if you can hit 5 people with some kind of AoE ability, you can trigger this 5 times. So that's like potentially over 1,000 damage on this item. So if you do have AoE abilities, if you're not just going to be hitting the tank on the front line, if you have access to the back line, or something like an AP Amumu or a cannon or fiddlesticks. Anything that's going to be able to hit a bunch of people, I think is going to be obviously really, really good with this. So situational, but potentially very nice if you're hitting multiple targets, if you have access to that back line. So certain assassin type of AP champs are really going to like this, but I think that kind of your standard front to back mage, like your Cassiopeia, your Ryze, your Orianna, that type of stuff is probably going to prefer Ludens. But that could still be good. Now, Amok's Folly, this is another one that could potentially be really good, and I think this one might be a better tank shredder. I haven't done the exact math on everything, but it could be better than Liandry's in some situations. So it's got 15 ability haste, 80 ability power, 10% Omni Vamp, which means you gain healing off of everything, right? So off of your physical damage and your magic damage. So it's kind of like the replacement for the old Spell Vamp. So that's obviously very nice. Each second that a champion is in combat, deal 3% bonus damage up to 15%, and then convert 100% of that bonus damage into true damage. So that's almost like 30%. It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood because true damage is... It's extremely clumsy to call it double damage, but it's very close to double damage because it just completely ignores all penetration. So this is particularly good if you're going to not rush Void Staff early on. You're going to get more value out of this. If you do have Pin, it doesn't affect the true damage portion, obviously, so that's a slight loss of efficiency. It's kind of a non-combo, but nevertheless, I think that's really good. 15% bonus damage that's also true damage. So it's like if you were going to do like 3,000 damage total in a team fight, it would end up being like 450 extra damage. If you double trigger this though on 4 targets, that's 800 damage. Now that's not true damage though, and this gives you bonus movement speed, and this gives you true damage. Against... It's hard to say. Like, against single target, this is going to be way better, I think, in longer fights. And the Spell Vamp is very nice. Obviously, if you're dealing like 3,000 damage, then it's going to give you like 300 health as well. This doesn't have the mana, which is kind of a bummer. Like, you're trading that, you're getting 10% Omni Vamp for mana, and I do think there are some mages that would rather have the mana. It's tough. This is almost certainly a better tank shredder though than this. I mean, it's 4% of the target's max health, but it's 1% per second versus true damage, which if you're doing like 500 damage per second, you're getting 75 true damage per second, which I think is going to be more than 1%. I mean, it depends on their max health, but true damage historically is just super strong. This also grants magic pen to everybody. So does Luden's. So 15 flat pin for all legendaries. So that's pretty good. I'd have to test this out, but I feel like this has the potential to be really strong. Because that's not just on the target, that's on every target. So if the fight goes on for a while, like 5 seconds while you're shredding through the tank, it's still powered up past that, versus Luden's, like, it's 8 seconds always, so it's not, like, always going to work. I feel like this is probably just better. If you can, like, deal without having the mana, this is probably going to be better. What does this build into? Out of Catalyst, which gives you Omni Vamp, which is going to give you really nice sustain in the lane. It doesn't have any mana, though, for the laning phase, but... that could potentially be a pretty good item. And then finally Hextech, and I know we're pretty much out of time. Same deal as it currently is, it just does more damage, so it does 250 to 350, and you gain 75% bonus movement speed towards enemy champions for 40 seconds. Now, right now, all of the bolts can converge and do a ton of bonus damage if it all hits one person, so if you just shoot them in the face with like Echo or Fizz or something like that, I don't know the exact math. I feel like it's a similar amount to 250 to 350. It might be slightly lower. But this can hit everybody. So this can like instantly clear a wave much faster once you get this. And in a team fight, it's 250. How many bolts? So if you hit like 4 people with this, or let's just say 3 people, that's like 750 to 1,000 damage. And you get bonus movement speed to go chase them down with Echo or Fizz or whatever. So I think that this could be really good on those champs. Now, it costs a lot more, so that's why I have a little bit of hesitation. It's 3,200 instead of 2,500, which is kind of a big deal. But I think it's really good. But it's just like, this is good, but so is this. So like on your Echoes, on your Fizzes, on your Burst Mages, this is probably going to be your ticket, I think, for the Burst. This has teamfight multi-kill, but like, I feel like this is better, right? If they're grouped up, you're going to hit 3 people with this pretty easily, immediately, versus this, like, and this historically has pretty good range. It's like 700 range or something on those bolts, and it also gives pin out. Versus this looks good, but it's only 150 base. So 3 of these at the base amount are going to be 750, and then 3 of these are only 450. So you have to hit like all 5 champions just about with this to make up for hitting 3 of them with this. So yes, big fat tanks in the middle can absorb the rocket, and it's not guaranteed to hit the backline, but this is kind of hard to hit the backline too. I mean, this is only a 40-second cooldown, and it can clear waves also. They have literally the exact same stats too. So there's that. I feel like Proto's just better. Like, Night Harvester looks really good, but I feel like this is just better. 75% movement speed too. You are definitely sticking to people with this one. So yeah, I feel like this is just better. So maybe Night Harvester just doesn't matter, and this is strong. So like the strongest ones kind of walking through here, I feel like this for like assassins is going to be the go-to. This is sort of your sustained damage option is probably your go-to, and then if you need a mana one, probably Luden's over Liandry's. Although that if you have a lot of other magic users on your team, then that Shred is very nice. So it's the only thing that I think is a real loser is probably the Everfrost. I don't know. I mean, that's 100 damage versus, but this is like 250, man. I mean, it's like 2.5 times more damage at this point than this is. Now, enemies at the center are rooted, so I don't know. I mean, I guess if you can root people for 1.5 seconds and get like, I don't know, maybe this is better than I think. I'll have to see this in action. If you can actually get a root for 1.5 seconds on like an entire team, maybe that's going to be better. Especially if you do take the Frost Rune or whatever. But anyway, so pretty good options. Overall, I think the Mages are one of the better ones that I've looked at so far. I think it's almost certainly better than the 80 carry one. Supports are kind of a mixed bag. The supports have some pretty powerful mythics. But yeah, overall, I think it's really good. So as far as like what I think people are going to rush, they're probably still going to rush the mythic. You might see, depending on the matchup, if they're against AD, you'll almost certainly get a Seekers first, just because that thing's nuts. So probably Seekers first. If there's a lot of healing, you might get an Oblivion Orb first. But aside from just like those little cheap items, I think people are just going to be rushing. If you're an assassin, the Protobelt, you probably start with your whatever, your Mage, I don't know what they're calling that. They're going to change the name on it, but your Hex item there, and then just build your way up to that. Pretty nice components up there. If you're going for the sustained damage, this is very good, especially in lanes where you're trading a lot. So like on a Cassiopeia, for example, this is going to be huge because she can just heal off of the... And I think a lot of champs are going to opt for the tier first and then see where it goes after that. And then late game, probably most of them will get Archangels. So that's why I think that like some of these non-mana ones might be the go-to. So like Cassiopeia might actually get this instead of Luden's. Although you do get extra value. Remember, you get 5% value off of the Luden's mana. So that's like getting an extra 30 ability power. So, I don't know. But against tanks, this is going to be really good. And you'd probably get this first. Or you could get Lost Chapter, which helps you out with the mana. You know, just kind of a standard build there. Old school Luden's. So I think Night Harvester is going to probably get left in the dust on this. It's probably not going to be that great. I think that Proto's just better. Proto's probably a better version of Everfrost most of the time. And then I think Ozmuk's is probably better than Luden's. These are also cheaper. These are 3,200. So if you had to like fully press me, I think that most champs are going to get Hextech or Ozmuk's a lot of the time, with Luden's being situational. And then probably after that, depending on the matchup, either complete your Zanyas, get a Banshee's Veil, or get a Void Staff, one of these 2,500 items. And then after that, probably once your tier is fully stacked up around like the 20 to 25 minute, maybe a little bit lower than that, complete your Archangels. And that'll be like your 3 items. And then just Sork Boots kind of situationally whenever you get them. It's the same value there. And I think that's pretty much going to be your build. You know, maybe like you get your Zanyas or your Banshees probably a second, and then complete your Archangels next, and then your 4th item would be Void Staff. And then after that, maybe either Death Cap or Cosmic Drive if you need to kite a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's probably how it'll go down. I think Archangels will probably be 3rd on a lot of champs if you're not like a super all-in. I think a lot of people probably will opt for the tier to start with. Epic, choose either Banshees or Zanyas depending on if you're against AD or AP. Complete your Archangels, Void Staff, call it a day. So these over here are like cute, but I just feel like they're pretty far out of the way from a lot of builds. And this is going to favor, I think, like ranged mages a lot more than melee mages. So like your Fizzes, your Echoes, that type of stuff, I think is going to be worse off, probably. Just because Proto is way more expensive. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Like, you can get the Proto later, you can get the Zanyas later, but you're not going to be able to leverage, like, starting off with tier, probably. I mean, maybe, but I think this is going to favor, like, the tier user people a lot more, potentially, but... Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much. As always, I really appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Let me know what you think about this format, and we'll see everyone next time. Have a good day.